Welcome back to our third and December edition of 20 Before 20, our new podcast where simply we talk to an artist for 20 minutes before they play 20 Front Street in downtown Lake Orion. My name is Kevin Bessert. I'm part of the 20 Front Street team. And although it's just our third episode, we're still breaking new ground here, and that is because we have our first ever in-studio guest.
Hey.
And that is the Detroit music staple, an icon around here, Jill Jack.
Oh, thank you. I like
Jill,
that.
Jill, thanks so much for agreeing to do this and coming in studio, which is a new twist so far for 20 Before 20.
I'm glad I can be a first. This is exciting. It almost reminds me of when I came to 20 Front Street when it was just, dirt in the ground and the bricks, and we were one of the first ones to kind of just play there with the acoustic guitar. It was so fun. It's so beautiful.
You do have an incredible history with us, but before we dive in, I do kind of want to do the little brag sheet here, and that is just for people that aren't familiar with your career.
Yes.
I was looking up stuff today, and it still blows my mind when I look at this stuff. A career that spans more than 25 years.
Yeah, it's like 30 now.
12 albums plus.
Yeah.
And this is the one that gets 46 Detroit Music Awards.
Actually, I'm embarrassed to say we need to update my website. It's 51.
51. the number keeps growing.
Yeah, but I think I got to be done soon. I can't imagine. I mean, who knows? Part of me was embarrassed by it sometimes. And actually, Bob Seger's manager told me, don't you ever be embarrassed. You be proud of that and you brag all you want. I'm like, okay, but yeah, it's just been a beautiful life. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's a struggle to be a musician.
Absolutely.
But it's also rewarding on so many levels. And when you do get recognized like that, it feels really good. My husband hates it because where am I going to put them all?
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, and that's why I like to start with that kind of brag sheet. And I know you don't necessarily always, sometimes it's hard to hear that stuff, but I do like just the reflection on what that means to you at this point in your career.
I think at this point it's even more important than before. When I used to look at them in the past, I'd have them on shelves and I would feel pressure, like, oh God, I got to put another album out, or I've got to do this, or I've got to do that. And now I look at it as like, wow, I've done a lot. And so it's kind of like, patting myself on the back a little bit. Because when you're running through it and you're always looking for the next gig and the next thing and the next album and the next song, sometimes sitting back and just looking at what you've created is pretty overwhelming.
Hard to do, yeah.
Yeah, it is hard to do. And then sometimes you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot I did that. Oh, yeah, I did that too,
That's great. Yeah. All right, so let's dive in. Obviously, this is 20 Before 20, and you do have a show at 20 coming up. Actually, not one show, but two, and that is on December 20th. Jill will be at 20 Front Street for her annual Christmas performances. Two shows, 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on the 20th. The 8 p.m. show is sold out. A few tickets left for the 6 p.m. show, so go grab those quickly before they're gone. So talk to me a little bit about these Christmas shows. We've now done it at 20 Front Street a few years, and I know you do them kind of around the state, not just at 20 Front Street. How did that get started, and what do these Christmas shows kind of mean to you at this point?
Well, it was funny because so many times my fans would say, you should do a Christmas album. I'm like, that's a great idea. And I wouldn't think about it till like November 26th.
Of course.
So finally one year I'm like, how can I do this? Because we're so busy. I ended up talking to the band about it and saying, what do you think about just recording it live? So there was a really awesome venue that you may remember, Callahan's.
Yep.
And I asked them, and they said no problem. And we did the show. We had 2 rehearsals before that. One, the keyboard player was sick for one of them. The guitar player was sick for the other one. And I was like, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. We were like white knuckle death grip. And the recording's beautiful. And it was so fun. So then we're like, okay, well, I guess we got to do shows now. And I wanted to kick myself in the butt because all those years I could have been selling my Christmas CD over and over and over again. And then people buy like 4 or 5 at a time.
Sure.
So I was like, but so we just started doing it and we just had so much fun. We put twists on the songs that you know so well. But God forbid I would never want to be compared to some of the greatest artists that have done incredible, work with those songs. So one of them, I literally wrote the rhythm in the shower. And I was like, let's change this up. And I recorded it on my phone real quick, sent it to my drummer. He's like, yeah, Jingle Bell Rock. We do this really cool version of it. So it's fun.
It is a ton of fun, and it always gets a great response. I remember it was 6 months before Christmas, and I was already getting the emails saying, "When is the Jill Jack Christmas show at 20 Front Street?" So
it's so good to hear.
no, it is popular. So I assume that kind of wraps up the year for you guys in terms of what's left on the calendar for this year.
Yeah.
And then you push into 2025.
Yeah, the years of doing New Year's Eve shows are done. I said, you got to pay me a lot of money to get off the couch. So yeah, we don't do that. So it's a beautiful way to, I like to lift people's spirits. And to me, sometimes December can be really hard for people.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I want them to feel joy. And so to me, it's a great way to end the year. And then we start the next year with my birthday bash. So yeah, that's always normal too.
Well, let's look ahead to 2025. I know there's a couple of things I want to talk about. You just mentioned the birthday bash, but one thing that 20 Front Street is going to be involved with you, something we're going to try in 2025, and that is a workshop. It's going to be called Jill Jack's Musical Performance Workshop Series. It's going to be on Tuesday nights, 3 consecutive months. Those dates are March 18th, April 15th, and May 20th. That will all be at 20 Front Street.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about this, something new for us. We're tickled that you're doing it at our venue, but just talk through a little bit about what that workshop's going to be and kind of, I know your Dream Big organization that you had previously is kind of
defunct.
Yeah. But what you've done in the past. So just talk a little bit about the workshop and kind of what that will entail.
So, I had such a beautiful time with Dream Big. It was a company I started because so many artists, young artists or parents of young artists, or even artists that have been in the business for a long time. How do you keep going? How do you do this? How do you market yourself? How did you know how to do that? And it just felt like there was just such a need for it.
Absolutely.
And also, I was kind of like a mama bear because I would hear horror stories about people that, somebody would say, well, give me $5,000 and I'll make sure your daughter's a star. And I always tell them, God, put your checkbook away. Let's start from where you're at. And so when the pandemic hit, everything closed down. And so Dream Big kind of shut down. And I just had such an itch to do it again. And you guys popped in my head. And one of the reasons is because 20 Front Street, if you talk to any artist that's performed at your venue, it's such a safe feeling. It's an environment of warmth. And when artists have that freedom to feel safe and comfortable, that's where they can create the best. And I do believe that having this at 20 Front Street gives the artist an opportunity to feel like what it's like to have a venue, to stand there, see the stage, and then see the seats, and just touch on a lot of different subjects that we all need as artists. I mean, I still need them,
Sure.
So yeah, I just called you guys and crossed my fingers and you guys said, okay. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
No, I can't think of a better use of this space, to be honest, because
Right?
artist development and that like you just described, that feeling of safety is such a big key component there with that artist development and why we created the room in the first place and why we do what we do.
Right.
So as part of that, I know you're talking about some different topics that will be discussed in those workshops, maybe even some guest speakers.
Yes.
I know we discussed. So what are some of those topics or kind of pieces that you're going to touch on for a new artist or an artist that maybe needs to take that next step?
Yeah. I mean, it's really open to anyone who is interested in their craft. Songwriting, okay? What I would like to do is create a space where people feel comfortable with songwriting. How do you start? Where do you start? Or if you've already started, how do you continue? All those things. When I've written 12 albums, believe me, there's a time where I'm like, I don't know what I have to say anymore. Where do you find inspiration? And then also just understanding collaboration. I mean, can we include? Some people don't like to. My first 10 years, I didn't want to write with anyone else. I wanted to write strictly by myself. But then the last, couple years, I've been like, yeah, let's collaborate. And I was open to it. I was ready.
Yeah.
So that for sure, songwriting. And then also marketing is really important. Booking, how to book a gig. What does that look like? How to market yourself. How do you stay true to yourself? How do you know who you are? How do you want to represent yourself and be comfortable with it? And also stage presence is another thing too. Some people are very nervous on stage. I've always said that try not to look at it as nerves. Try to look at it as it's adrenaline. Your body's excited that you're about to go do something you love. So instead of thinking you have stage fright, how about you just think about it as just like I say, think about like a Lions football player before he goes on, he's like jumping up, pumping
Pumped
his
up,
chest,
yeah.
That's all that is. So if you can rework your mind, pivot your mind to say, this is where I'm at. I may be breathing a little heavier. But these are different things I've learned through the process and also learned through other artists as well. And I think bringing in other people too. I'm not the greatest with tech all the time, TikTok, all those things. I'd like to bring other people in that can do it. And also, people like you who have to deal with artists that call you or contact you. What is something that really snags your attention to book that artist? What is something that's a complete turnoff and you're like, absolutely not? What are your needs as a booking person?
Sure.
From the artist, and the artist just, some artists think, oh, well, they'll just book me because I'm great. Well, there's 70 million people who are great out there. How can you rise above them to get your booking?
Well, I'm super excited for it to be at 20 Front Street. I'm excited to be involved, and I just can't wait to watch this evolve, and hopefully it's something that we can do routinely at 20 Front Street because I think there is a huge need for it in the artist community.
Too.
So that's one thing to look forward to in 2025. Yeah. Another one I know that I think is pretty cool, and I'm sure you're excited about, is you are doing your first cruise, and that is in November.
Yes.
It's Jill Jack's Mexican Adventure Mariners of the Sea cruise. Tell me about this.
It sounds like a comedy.
It sounds like a lot of fun to me.
No, it's going to be so much fun. So I opened for Dan Navarro at a venue, and he was telling me that my relationship with my fans, I should really consider doing a cruise. Yeah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I said, well, that sounds like fun. And they tried to explain it to me right before I was going on stage. So the next day, Anya Siglin from the ARC called me, and she said, here, do you want to go on a cruise? I'm like, wow,
Word travels
fast. And so she explained the situation, and it is fun. I get to perform 3 shows, and if you book this cruise, you get to see all 3 shows. You get to have a meet and greet. You get Q&A. We have another, I think, a meeting that's like a Q&A of just, what do you want to know about me? And then also we get to just hang out.
Yeah.
And so many of my fans become my friends and family in a strange sort of way. My husband says it's a little like maybe too much, but to me it's like, now we can hang out and go snorkeling together. Yeah. Or we can just, spend more time than me just 5 minutes signing and saying, hey, it's good to see you again. How's your mom? Yeah. So this is really exciting, and I love good weather. I love the water. And I think this is just, after you've been in this business, how can you do something different? This is a great opportunity to do something different.
Yeah, and I think Dan's advice to you that because of your relationship with your fans to pursue something like that, I will tell you another boat that goes out, the Rock Boat, is something that's been around for years and years. And we have a community of people, a lot of which frequent 20 Front Street. That community of people they call themselves the Rock Boaters. It is such a tight-knit group of people, like something I've never seen.
Right.
And it's all based around this cruise. They go on one time a year, and it is amazing to see these people have all become family. And so hearing that is kind of a reason to do it, I think sounds amazing.
And to know that music is bringing it all together.
Absolutely.
And what I'd love to do. So it's just like, really? It's just too good to be true. But I couldn't believe at first. I was like, oh boy, is anybody interested? Oh my gosh, the interest is ridiculous. And so I'm so excited. And I think the more the merrier. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, that's awesome. Well, between the workshop and the cruise, I feel like that could be that's a whole year right there. But
no,
but there's plenty of. So what else in 2025 in terms of just kind of the regular touring shows? What's that look like for you in the new year?
So I'm excited about a few things that I'm hoping, and I'm saying it out loud to put it in the universe, which holds me to it that way. But we're building a house in Oxford.
Yeah.
And my husband's building me a studio, and the view of where we're living is 2.5 acres of just pine trees everywhere. It sounds like the ocean. And so I've had a lot of loss in the last few years with my mom and dad both passing, and it's just been really hard. And I wanted to do an album of almost like grief, the travel of grief. And while it sounds sad, it isn't necessarily. You start in a certain way. You may be sad, you may be angry, you may be in denial. And then all of a sudden there's this lift of grief, and there's a spiritual feeling that happens to you if you open up. And so I kind of want to take this, and my web design guy is like, I think you should do a double album. And I'm like, I think that's a brilliant idea. So I'm hoping to do that in 2025, or at least write it and start recording it. Also, I am going to be working with a part-time manager to do some touring outside more of Michigan. We're looking at California, we're looking at Colorado, we're looking at different areas there.
Very cool.
So I'm looking forward to that, and then and then continuing hopefully with workshops and helping people. Yeah, I really like to do.
Well, and with the new house being built so close to 20 Front Street, we're glad to have you more in our neighborhood and have you around more often when you're not on the road. So,
I know.
So we are looking forward to that. You touched on it a little bit when you were discussing kind of career development and booking gigs and all that. Mm-hmm. Because you've been in the Detroit market for as long as you have, I'd be interested to hear from you just kind of how you think the Detroit music scene has changed over the years, or if you do think it has changed. When you look at it today versus, maybe some of the years in the past, how do you think the Detroit music scene has changed, or where do you see it today, or where it's headed?
Well, I think when I started, I was just this doe, deer in headlights, and I didn't know anything about anything. I just knew I want to sing and write songs, and so the Detroit industry really took me in, and great press and all that, obviously music awards and things like that. I think there's a twofold with it. I think sometimes with Detroit, you've had people, and I think in the past I felt it more, or maybe it was just, I'm not sure, but almost like we weren't really a community necessarily. Everybody was just like clawing to get to the top. Yep. And I see more and more of how the community has really come together, and different, granted, genres kind of hang out with different genres, thing like that. But there's a crossover too. And I do feel that, and I kind of want to get my hands on it too, is that I think it needs more focus. I think we do need to promote more. The Detroit Music Awards Association, I don't know, they haven't done the music awards last year. I'm not sure if they're going to do it this year, but there's got to be other ways that we can, it's hard to survive in the industry right now. We can't sell music. We can't make a lot of money selling music. It's ridiculous. So what can we do, right? And to me, I would like to maybe create opportunities, bigger shows, those one-off shows, where you have what I used to call like Elvis Presley and all those guys, where they'd have each one did like one song. Yeah. And when you get that creative juice in one building and you only have one song to do, everybody does it like 110%. And what a gift to the crowd who can see all these different genres. And I mean, that's just one of my goals at some point. But
I love the sound of that. And, you and I can talk, because I'd love to be involved with something like that.
I just think there's so much great music out there, and the young people, where do they play right now? I don't know.
That was kind of the reason for the question, is I feel like I do hear more and more from younger artists, or just artists in general in the area of, there's less places to play out, there's less people coming out, and things of that nature. So
difficult.
I was just interested to hear you, who's kind of had a longer span to look at how things have changed.
I was really blessed. When I came up, we did the clubs. There was clubs everywhere, and people came out to hear music. It is harder to get people out. I'm lucky I have a fan base that I do, but it is hard. It's like pulling teeth. So you have to, you either give up or you pivot and you try and figure out a different way. And I think that if you do offer that opportunity, okay, here's a night, not just with one artist, here's a night with some artists you may have never heard of, but they're going to blow your mind. And if you don't like country, there's a blues guy coming up next. If you don't like blues, there's a rock guy coming up next, So it's just those opportunities to be able to do that. I think that would, but you have to make it an event. And it takes work, it takes money, and it takes dedication. But I like producing. Yeah. I produced the Michigan State Fair Mega Jam. That needed more promotion. That needed more help. But those were great. They came up, did 2 songs each, and the crowd loved it. Yeah.
So. Well, that leads me to kind of one of my last questions here. But in terms of that talent that I think both you and I know exists in the area,
absolutely.
Who are some of the maybe younger artists, or some of the artists, I know you work with some of them here and there. Who are some of the artists kind of that have caught your eye, or you've seen in the area that are, you think, kind of up and coming?
Well, I think, and you've had them at your place, but the Keynote Sisters, I think, are phenomenal. And, I know they have life in the way. Sometimes they have college and different things like that. But I think what they have to offer is I see what happens to audiences when they watch them.
Yeah.
I even see what happens to musicians who see them while they're recording. I think they have a unique niche, with the being sisters. I was working with Michaela Prue. She's a new artist. She's country as country can be, but she's dedicated, driven, and she understands how much hard work is involved in doing this. And I think that's one of the things I'll do at my workshop is a lot of artists that come to me be like, I just want to play.
Yeah.
This is not what this career is about. I mean, yes, it's awesome to play. That's the icing on the cake. But to be able to build the cake, you got to do all of it.
There's a lot that goes into it.
And one of the things I always recommend to artists is wear every hat. Wear every hat. Booking, how to load your gear, how to plug in your gear, how to do a set list, all those things. But getting back to artists, there's a great folk trend out there like Audrey Kubats, and they're not like necessarily up and coming, but they are strong. Emily Rose, I mean, she's got this great thing going on. And then I'm sure there's many more that I haven't even seen yet, and I look forward to meeting them. When I have these workshops is when I get to meet the new and upcoming artists, and you can tell who's got that hunger, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll be seeing them in about 2 years ready to roll. And it's so nice to see them just take off. And a lot of them have family support, which is really important. You need somebody to ground you in this.
Yep. And I'm along those lines. I'm glad we were able to, a few months ago, we had taken a pause, but we've restarted the Michigan Songwriter Series, which is monthly at 20 Front Street. Steve Taylor kind of heads that up, but it allows him to bring in a lot of that Michigan talent we're discussing.
Yeah,
on a
I'm going to be
basis.
on that.
Yeah.
I think in March he called me.
I'm glad that we were able to kind of bring that back.
And it gives them an opportunity, right? Like we were saying, there's not a whole lot of where are they playing right now? How can they? And that's one of the things is if it's not there, create it. When I decided to do a jazz album, the jazz clubs wouldn't book me because I was a folk artist as far as they was concerned. So I found a venue, and it wasn't really a music venue, but I made it into a music venue, and we sold out. And I looked at the jazz clubs like, oh, bummer for you because you could have made some money tonight. But you create your future, and I think the artists will be able to do that, and the young ones. I hope they can because there's so much to do. We still have so much to say musically in this world.
Absolutely. Well, hard to believe we've already blown through the 20 minutes. It goes by. I've said this every one so far that goes by so fast.
It does.
But I do have a closing question that I'm closing each and every podcast with. It's kind of a closing question, and that is, we just talked about Detroit talent, but this can be kind of across the board nationally or whatever. Who are you listening to right now, or who's someone maybe you've seen live recently, gone to a concert, something like that kind of blew your mind and is just getting heavy rotation in Jill Jack's playlist?
Well, I hate to say it because people don't believe it, but I don't play a lot of music. And the reason I don't is because I have to free my mind so that I can write.
Interesting.
But I'm really, and this is going to be weird, I never considered even ever listening to her before, but it was Ariana Grande.
Okay.
I went and saw Wicked with my daughter, and I was just blown away by her performance and not just vocally, but everything. And so she's just been in my head, and I've been playing her music. And so that is a strange thing. I never thought I'd ever listen to her, but I mean, she's great. But other than that, I also just, the way I do music and listen to it is I just put random things on, things that will stretch my goal for my next 2 albums is sounds. I want to work on different sounds that will tweak my creativity in writing.
Love it.
Because I know I can always come up with lyrics. I can't always come up with music. So what I've been doing is listening to just all different channels and all different kinds of music to see what will stimulate me. And then while I'm driving, I'll put the video on, it's just so I can hear them. But that's pretty my MO right now.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, thank you so much for coming in, doing this. I'm super excited for 2025, just based on the things we've talked about today. A lot to be excited about, and hopefully we'll be along for the ride for a lot of it at 20 Front Street.
You bet you will.
So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
No, I really appreciate it.
Okay, good.